Every once in a while, I'll come across a bit of clickbait that boldly declares, after 4,400 years, Noah's Ark has been found, or the Turkish government is hiding the Ark. If we only had access, if the Turkish government would only let us in, then we could actually lay our hands on Noah's Ark. Here are 3 reasons why I don't think we'll ever find the Ark. Number 1, if we consider the biblical timeline, the Ark was built about 4,500 years ago. There's no way wood that is almost 5,000 years old is going to survive. It would be subject to natural decay. A wooden ship could not and would not endure the normal predations of time. Wood just doesn't last that long. Now, someone might object and say, but wait a minute. We've found ancient ships, Roman era ships, that have survived. What about that? True. We've found a Greek merchant ship in the Black Sea dated to about 400 BC. We've found a Galilean fishing boat from the time of Jesus. And we've found Roman cargo ships off the coast of Italy from about 400 AD. And it's true, we've found many ships from the ancient world. And how were they preserved? They were buried underwater, away from the sun. Noah's Ark would be double the age of these ships that we've uncovered from the Mediterranean. But that's not really the issue. The issue is not only would Noah's Ark be double the age of these Roman-era ships, it landed on the top of Mount Ararat, which sits at 16,000 feet. It would be open and exposed to things like the sun, rain, wind, snow, and everything else. Wood, exposed to the elements, is gone in a matter of decades. Maybe the huge beams and closed structure would have lasted hundreds of years, sure, but not 4,500 years exposed on the top of a mountain. I don't think, however, that Noah's Ark disintegrated on the top of Mount Ararat. I think there's another reason why we're not going to find the Ark, and this is number 2. The Ark would have been cannibalized for its wood. Imagine Noah and family stepping off the Ark and beholding a destroyed but recreated world. There were no people, no structures, and no civilization. Furthermore, it's my belief that not only were all the trees dead from being submerged underwater for a year, but they were all swept away in the flood. Remember, the Lord himself said that the purpose of the flood was not just to wipe away the wickedness of humankind, but it was to flood the entire earth. Consider what the scripture says. Genesis 6:13, behold, I will destroy them with the earth. 2 Peter 3:6, the world that existed then was deluged with water and perished. The earth was, in a sense, wiped clean. I don't believe there were any trees left standing. Look at the descriptions once again that we find in the scripture. On that day, all the foundations of the great deep burst forth. Genesis 7:11. The waters prevailed so mightily on the earth that all the high mountains under the whole heaven were covered. And the waters prevailed above the mountains, covering them 15 cubits. Genesis 7:19-20. The waters burst forth mightily upon the earth, and with the immeasurable amount of water shifting back and forth violently, the entire topography of the surface of the earth would have changed. As the waters receded, new valleys, new plains, new ridges, and spurs would have been created, and the earth would have indeed been reset. It's strange that the oldest tree in the world is a Great Basin bristlecone pine called Methuselah, dated at 4,800 years old. We know that trees can live longer, and yet there is not a standing tree older than the approximate date of the flood. When Noah and family stepped off the ark, the trees were wiped away. They were told to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. In fact, Genesis chapter 9 tells us, and God blessed Noah and said to his sons, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. This is where they would have run into some logistical issues. What we read from the text is that the ark rested upon the top of Mount Ararat. Genesis 8:4, in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. Ararat has 2 peaks, and the text doesn't tell us exactly where the ark rested. We would assume, I think correctly, that the ark would not have rested on the tallest portions of the mountains, because how could all of the animals have climbed down safely? So it was indeed on the mountain, and yet it was low enough that the ark could rest and the animals and humans could walk down. There was no civilization. So where did Noah and his sons live? We know that it snows on Mount Ararat. We can guess that they probably lived on the ark for some time. The ark was huge, the animals were gone, it was empty, they could have been fruitful and multiplied and lived on the ark for some time. I imagine them slowly exploring, making their way down into the valley and looking for places to hunt, to plant crops, and to find water. As Noah's sons were fruitful and multiplied, they would have needed homes, structures, and buildings to rebuild civilization. But there were no trees. Where on earth did they get the wood to build anything? The best guess is that they cannibalized the ark. And as they multiplied and made their way down into the valley to plant crops and rebuild civilizations, the ark was the only source of wood. Now, the ark at the Ark Encounter in Williamstown, Kentucky, states on their website that they used 3.1 million board feet of wood to create the replica. 3 million board feet is more than enough to build a small village. What about when all of the wood of the ark ran out? They cannibalized it and used it, and there was nothing left, and they still needed wood to build. What then? Well, that's an easy one. Many pine trees grow quickly enough that they can be harvested within 50 or 60 years. I imagine for the first 50 years, they cannibalized the ark, they started building villages, but by the time they needed more wood, the local flora and fauna would have grown tall enough that they could harvest things like pine trees. And by the way, Noah lived 350 years after the flood. Noah and family used dead wood probably for firewood, the ark to rebuild civilization, and then began harvesting the wood from trees as soon as they were mature enough to do so. Noah's ark is gone. It's not going to be found because in all likelihood, Noah and his family cannibalized the wood to begin rebuilding civilization. Now, there is a third reason why I don't think we'll ever find Noah's ark. The Lord hates idol worship. Human beings have an unfortunate knack of taking anything from Bible history and turning it into a talisman, a magic token, or an idol. The Israelites began to think that it was the physical Ark of the Covenant that brought them victory instead of the Lord himself. The Lord provided a bronze snake to heal the people from snake venom. And what did they do? They began to worship the object. Even today, we seek the physical. We want wood from Noah's Ark, we want wood from the cross, we want the Holy Grail, and we want things like the Shroud of Turin. We want objects, items from biblical history, and when we find them, we begin to revere them, if not worship them. Here's my question. Has the Lord allowed any object from Bible history to survive? I mean, even a single one. We don't have original copies of the scripture, and there isn't a single piece of surviving history from Bible characters or Bible events. We certainly have items from that time period, but none that directly connect to a Bible person or a Bible event. Remember what the scripture says, "Blessed are those who have not seen and yet believed," John 20. 2 Corinthians 5 says, "We walk by faith, not by sight." No, the Lord hates idol worship, and we're to walk by faith, not by sight. We don't need pieces of the cross. We don't need pieces of the ark. We don't need bronze snakes. We don't need any item because we have the Lord himself. And it is in him, though invisible, that we place our faith. So here it is. We haven't found Noah's Ark, and I think we haven't found it for 3 reasons. Number 1, the ark would not have survived the elements on top of a mountain for 4,500 years. Number 2, Noah and family likely cannibalized the ark to rebuild civilization. Number 3, the Lord would not allow it to remain because of the human tendency toward idol worship. Now look, I love biblical history. I love the story of Noah's Ark, and I would love to have seen what it looked like. But that's just not something the Lord has allowed. You see, we have our own ark, and that is Jesus Christ the Lord. And he himself, when we place our faith in him, saves us from the coming wrath. Jesus for us is our ark.